All right, in this section, we're not going to be drawing, but I did want to take a quick moment to talk about importing and exporting because it's one of the great features in Procreate. We can export a layered file, like a Photoshop file. We can also import a layered file, and there's some other options in here too, and I wanted to run through those. So there are several ways to import. The first thing we can do is when we create a brand new document by pressing the plus file in the upper right hand corner, at the very bottom there's an option here for import, and if I tap that, it's going to bring up kind of the files that I want to import into this document. I can import something from iTunes, I can import something from my photos, which is probably what I'm going to do here. I can import for iCloud, or I can import from my clipboard. If you're not familiar with the clipboard, basically what that is if I copy something from the web, if you long press on your iPad, one of the options might be to copy an image, for example. That image will be saved to your clipboard, and you can use that image within Procreate. I'm going to choose photos here, so I'm going to go ahead and tap on that, and I have some folders. You may or may not have folders. This is just the way mine is set up. This is the camera app, the Photos app on my iPad, so I'm going to tap on Camera Roll. I have several options in here, but I want this specific photo that I downloaded from the internet the other day. So you can see what happened here is I'm starting with the base of this photo. It brings in the dimensions from this photo. If we go ahead and tap on the layers, we can see that there is a background layer and the photo has been imported onto its own layer here. So I can toggle that layer on and off. This is not the only way to import into Procreate. If we tap the little wrench in the upper left-hand corner by the word gallery, we have our options pop up. Now within these actions, the very first one we see, the little circle here says insert, and if I tap insert, now I have some more import options. I can insert a flat image, and if I tap that, it's very similar to what we saw before. I can go to my photos, I can tap on my camera roll, and I can go ahead and grab an image, and any image that I grab from my camera roll is going to be pasted on its own layer within this document. As you can see, it's already selected, so I could resize it if I want to whatever size I want, and then when I tap the arrow key and let it go, now it is set upon the canvas. And this is just like before, it has inserted it in its own layer. Now if I go back to that wrench in the upper left hand corner and tap that again, I'm still on insert. My other option is that I can actually take a photo using the iPad's camera. I don't have much to look at, but if I tap that, I can show you what's going to happen. There we go. There's the microphone I've been talking into. So I'll snap a photo of that. Going to use that photo. And there we go. I have used in a very clumsy way, the camera on the iPad to snap a quick photo and bring that into Procreate. And this works like everything else. I just tap the arrow and now that layer is set. And just to show you again, this is on its own layer. I can toggle it on and off. It's great. We can also import a layered Photoshop file. So if I go back to my gallery and then in the upper right hand corner, hit that plus button again to bring up my options. One of them is import. So I'm going to tap on import down at the bottom there. And this time I'm going to grab something from the cloud. And from here, this is just my iCloud drive. So to show you how this works, I'm just going to go to one of these folders that I know I have a Photoshop file in. So I'm going to scroll down to untitled_artwork.psd. I'm going to tap on that, and it's going to take a minute to import, and it's going to take a minute to process because Photoshop files are layered. They tend to be kind of large, but that's okay. But when it is done importing and pulling it off the web, it's going to open it here. There we go. There is my file. Now I'm going to tap on my layers just to show you how that worked. And as you can see, I have different layers here that I can kind of toggle on and off. And it's all working the way I expected it to. That's a layer I wasn't using, so I'll turn these layers back on. So you can see I can import layered Photoshop files as well. Now, as of the recording of this is a very new feature, and it works pretty well. There are a couple things that you cannot import from Photoshop. For example, if you use layer masks, those are probably not going to import properly for you. Also, if you're importing text, there is no text tool in Procreate. So all of your text is not going to be editable anymore when you open that Photoshop file. It's just going to be rasterized. It's just going to turn that into a bitmap, so you can't change that text once you open up that Photoshop file here in Procreate. But everything else, like the layers themselves, your layer groups, blending modes, all of that is saved from Photoshop and pulled into Procreate with no problems whatsoever. So that is importing. What about exporting? It works in a very similar way. If I tap on that wrench in the upper left-hand corner again, I see my actions, and this time, instead of inserting, I want to share, which is the third one over. So I'm going to tap on share. I can share artwork, or I can export my video. If I tap on share artwork, I'm going to see my options. The first one is Pro, which is your Procreate file. So if you want to share a Procreate file with someone, which is a layered Procreate file, obviously with all your Procreate settings in it, you can do that here. You can also export as a PSD, which is the Photoshop file, which is the same file type that I just imported. You can also export as a PDF. Now I should point out that this PDF is usually a flat file. Oftentimes PDFs in the wild have a lot of vector elements. If they have any text or anything like that, it will be vectorized, but not if you're exporting from Procreate. Procreate can't do text anyway. Procreate can't do any kind of vectors. So even if you export as a PDF, it's still going to be a bitmapped file. A JPEG is a JPEG, you're probably familiar with that, and same thing with a PNG. The nice thing about the PNG is that if you have a transparent background, that is going to be saved when you export it as a PNG. Before I leave the importing-exporting section, there is one thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is how to export files out of Procreate in bulk. As you can see, I have a lot of drawings here in Procreate. Quite a few, and they're not huge. You know, they're anywhere between 5 and 15 megs, but that can really start to add up when you have a lot of drawings in here, and I have quite a few drawings in here. It can take up a lot of space, so what if you want to back these things up and get them off your iPad? I found that the easiest way to do this is to use iTunes. If I want to do it quickly, I can just swipe to the right on a document, and it highlights as blue, and I can actually swipe as many of these as I want. And then once I've selected the ones I would like to back up, all I have to do is go to the upper left-hand corner, and there is this square with an arrow on it. There's also a garbage can. That's going to delete it. You don't want to do that. Well, maybe you do. But what I want to do here is I want to share. So I'm going to tap that share icon. It's going to give me my options. I'm going to say, hey, keep it in Procreate. So I tap Pro, and it's going to be exporting. Now, this takes a couple seconds. This is actually moving pretty fast, so I'll just keep talking over it. And there we go. It is exported. And now we have some options. I find that if I want to use the stuff at the top, like importing with Dropbox, it tends to do one at a time. However, if I choose the options at the bottom, the only option I have actually is iTunes. If I tap that, it's going to take a couple seconds, but there we go. My export is successful. So let's move over to iTunes, and I can show you what has just happened. So here I am over in iTunes, and I have my iPad Pro selected here. You can see it up here, Bradley's iPad. You can see down here I am almost out of space, so I want to be backing up some of these things. So what you're going to want to do to find these files and pull them off your iPad is I want to go to Apps on the left-hand side underneath Summary. And then I'm going to scroll down here, and it's a list of apps that all have files associated with them. I'm going to tap on Procreate here. This might take a second. And here we go. We can see all the drawings and some other drawings as well that I have exported from Procreate to iTunes. And from here, you know, I can select any of these. I can hold down Shift and I can select multiples, and I can actually save them wherever I need to save them. So that is the fastest way to back up all your files from Procreate to your Mac or PC. It's going to work with any computer that can run iTunes, and it works very well.